Well, good morning. Welcome back to the Broadcast Retirement Network. I'm Jeff Snyder. This is BRN AM for Friday, May 14th, 2021. And here is our top story: buying or renting a home in retirement. Well, joining me now to discuss this and a lot more is Alessandra Melito of MarketWatch. Allie, so great to talk to you as always. Thanks so much for joining us again this morning.
Yeah, absolutely. Glad to be here.
So let's talk about this. This is I think it's really exacerbated because of the cost of housing today, which we're going to get into. But buying or renting in retirement, this is really a key decision for many entering their retirement years. What can you tell us?
Yeah, so a lot of people assume that you should just own, that you should buy property, own it forever, and that's it. But it is really something that people should weigh, and it's not just for those who are in their 20s or 30s and considering moving around. So we have a column at MarketWatch called "Help Me Retire," and we had one couple who they were in their 60s and thinking about renting versus buying. They just sold a property. They had $1 million from the sale, and they were thinking, well, maybe we'll rent for the foreseeable future and then move, or maybe we'll just own. What it comes down to is basically what you plan to do for the next couple of years, especially if you are in retirement. So in this particular situation, they were doing fine. They were well off. They had the $1 million from the sale after taxes, plus they had more money saved away in investment portfolios. So they could afford to make that decision. Other people maybe might not have the same amount of funds, and for them it could come down to just what does it make sense to do every month. What can you afford to do? There's never a right answer with these sorts of things, especially when it comes to old age and retirement. You have to think about what your monthly expenses are now, as well as what they're going to be in the next 5, 10, 15 years, as far as healthcare, taxes, and so on.
Yeah, and so there's a lot that, as you said, a lot that goes into this, and it's really on a personal, person by person, family by family basis. But when you look at today's housing market, and I was talking to someone earlier today, I think the cost of the average new home has gone up $36,000 because you can't get any lumber, you can't get some of the important resources to build a house, and so. Or even to do any type of construction work on a house, so remodeling, etc. That's a large expense for people, especially if you're on a fixed budget. So monetarily, financially, right now may not be a good time if you're thinking about retiring now. And that rent, the ability to rent gives you that flexibility. You've got a fixed payment. You're not, as you said, you're not paying for the maintenance. Timing is everything right now in the market.
Yeah, absolutely. But there are so many factors even with that. So for example, like selling a house right now makes a lot of sense because prices are pretty high. You'll get something. But buying could also make sense because interest rates are pretty low. So you have that going for you. The cost of the home might be more expensive, but the interest rates might be lower, and that could help you in the long run, depending on what you're able to spend. With renting, though, you're right, you do get more flexibility. So in this particular situation with the couple in their 60s, they might be better off renting. And a lot of financial advisors said that because they have the money behind them. They can put that money in an investment portfolio and look to see a return, and only withdraw a fraction of what they might need if they were to buy a home, so that they can pay for their monthly expenses. The only thing with that is rents are also going to go up. It's not just home prices when you're buying. So, these people might be okay, but that's something that others need to consider as far as like if they're going to get a lease, how long they're going to make their lease for, and what they are expecting to see when that lease is up.
Yeah, really good point. I mean, there's not a perfect, as you said, there's not a perfect solution here. One thing I thought was really interesting in kind of reading your article, and I saw the wisdom of many different constituencies, financial advisors, agents, etc., was the capital gains that comes when you sell your home. So if you buy it for X and you sell it for Y, hopefully it's more, there's a tax that's on that, and you really need to factor that in to your financials, right? So if you sell your house today and you decide, hey, I'm going to buy another house, a smaller house, there's taxes that are going to be owed on that.
Yeah, and a lot of people don't always think about the taxes or how high those taxes could be. Capital gains tax is much better than ordinary income tax. It's lower, so you have that going for you, but it's still a chunk of money that's being taken out of your proceeds from the sale. So that is another thing that needs to be considered when deciding, okay, am I ready to sell my home, and what am I going to do with the money when it comes out? You don't want to overextend yourself where you think you're getting $1 million. And in that couple's case, they were getting $1 million after tax. But you don't want to be in the situation where you think, okay, I'm getting $1 million. I'm going to spend that $1 million on another home, because you're not actually getting $1 million. You're getting less than that. And you need to, you have to calculate that in what you're going to do next.
Yeah, one of the pieces, and we've got about 1.5 minutes, 2 minutes left. One of the things I really like, the advice I think that someone had said was, hey, why don't you get less of a house and take some of that money, so the next house you get, if you're going to buy one or rent, and you take money and reinvest it, because, by the way, you're going to need money in retirement. You're going to have fixed expenses. Look, we've already seen, Allie, CPI go up. I think Wednesday it went up 4.6%. So we've seen gas, cost of food prices, et cetera. That's got to be top of mind for people that are thinking about retirement or in retirement. How am I going to deal with inflation, cost of goods going up, unexpected emergency expenses that we saw people have need for it during this pandemic?
Yeah, and the CPI that people tend to focus on also isn't the one that has to do with retirees. Retirees have a whole other basket of expenses that they need to take into consideration. So the traditional CPI might focus more on transportation, but that's something that retirees aren't really as concerned about. They're spending more on healthcare, and you have to look at how much healthcare prices are rising, which is all the time, every year, and it doesn't look like it's going to decline or even, stay the same for any, foreseeable future. So you're right. People do need to think about the inflation when you are putting money away into an investment portfolio, or you're, buying something. Just think about, maybe the next 5 years after that, and what you anticipate needing, and then throw a couple more $1,000s to that, because you have no idea what could happen, as we have seen with 2020 and the pandemic.
Yeah. Allie, I want to take a very quick break. When we come back, we'll talk more about buying or renting in retirement. What's the right choice? Well, you're going to have to stay tuned to BRN to find out. We'll be right back after these messages. Imagine a new television network that will make you richer, healthier, and in control of your financial future. This network is for the policewoman in Nashville, Tennessee, the baker in Dubuque, Iowa, the teacher in Lexington, Kentucky. We want to make the idea of savings in retirement culturally relevant. But what do you see as a defining issue of the midterms, especially for the smaller businesses? I mean, they are the lifeblood of the American economy. Featuring exclusive interviews, current affairs, and docuseries. 33 years old, you retired early.
The philosophy is money only matters if it helps you live a life that you love.
But you got to start thinking about retirement as soon as you get in.
The Broadcast Retirement Network will drive very high engagement with premium partnerships. So this isn't retirement and savings for your parents or grandparents. This is for all Americans. And we're going to change the way you think about money. Welcome to the next frontier of retirement and savings. This is BRN, the Broadcast Retirement Network.
Are you stuck with a low credit score? A credit report and score that's causing you to be denied credit or pay higher interest rates than others for the same things? Then do what Terrence did and call Credit Repair for your free credit evaluation to help restore your credit.
I started thinking about buying a new house, and my score wasn't where I needed it to be. I called and spoke with one of the representatives, and we just had a good conversation, and I liked what he was saying.
Just one call for his free credit evaluation was all it took to start back on the track to repairing his credit.
I'm seeing the deletions and I'm getting the report, so I know something's being done. It does make a difference to me.
All it takes is one call to get started.
Credit Repair has given me a second chance to have a better credit score.
Don't let a low credit score hold you back another day. Do what Terrence did and make the call for your free credit evaluation.
Call 800-819-4152. That's 800-819-4152. Again, 800-819-4152.
Welcome back. We're talking to Alessandra Melito of Market Watch. Allie, thanks as always for staying with us this morning.
Yeah, absolutely. Glad to be
And we're
here.
talking buying or renting in retirement, and great first segment. One of the things I wanted to pick up on, and you mentioned this, towards the end of the segment, but healthcare costs going up and up and up, and that doesn't seem to be abated. You really need, especially as you get older, that's your largest expense in retirement is your health care, and you're going to have needs. Sometimes the piping needs to be replaced or cleaned out, right? So this is something that people can't lose sight of when they're saving and thinking about what their next home or place to live is going to be.
Yeah, absolutely. Healthcare is something that people don't always take into consideration, or they do and they just underestimate it. Healthcare isn't necessarily just your copays, which could be like $30 or $40 or less. It could be an unexpected surgery or an operation or some sort of procedure that you just didn't see coming. And it doesn't even have to be life-threatening. It could just be something that pops up,
Yeah, absolutely.
The pandemic was a perfect example of that. It was something that just popped up. We did not see it coming, and there it was. And, you had to factor that into your monthly expenses afterwards.
Yeah. Unexpected expenses when you're owning a house, maintenance, if you need a new roof. I mean, and you kind of alluded to this, and we talked about this in the first segment. People are buying houses right now, sight unseen. So they're foregoing some of the contingencies they're foregoing are like inspections. We've talked to your colleague Jacob Passy about this. You could be saddled with putting on a new roof if you don't do an inspection, or maybe you have drywall damage or some damage in the attic if you have an attic or a basement because of water damage. These are things that you really need to think about. And as a homeowner, if I'm enjoying my retirement, do I really want to be saddled with trying to do those types of repairs, hiring a handy person to do that, handyman, handywoman to do that? That's a lot of unexpected expense, along with the insurance to insure a home these days.
Yeah. So owning a home definitely comes with more expenses, but on the opposite side, you do get to keep the property. It is yours. You own it. If you make improvements, that goes towards the basis of the home. So you have, you own it. It's yours. Whereas with renting, some people don't feel comfortable with that because you don't own it, and you're not getting that monthly expense back in any capacity. But at the same time, like you said, with owning, and especially in retirement, you don't want to have such a big house if you can't maintain it, because you do have those things. You might have a leak in the roof. You might have, a pipe burst. You might have extra costs with lawn care. There's just so much more that you are responsible for, which with the beauty of renting, you don't have to deal with that. But then people might also want to take into consideration something like a co-op or some sort of other housing unit where you pay a maintenance. So that kind of then, I guess, it seems like rent because you're not getting that money back, but you're also not responsible for the upkeep of the property in the same sense, because somebody else is taking care of the lawn. Somebody else is going to answer the call when a pipe bursts. You just have to make the call, and it might be inconvenient, but you would have to do that whether you were renting, owning, or not. So yeah, there are definitely a lot of expenses, but there are also many avenues you could take for housing and retirement. It's not it's not clear cut all the time.
And you bring up a good point. And I was going down the house to house route, but you could move house to condo. And you're talking about HOA fees and fees in a condo association where you're right, there are common maintenance support. You can make a phone call and have a plumber come and you pay that in there. And condos now offer a wealth of community benefits. In fact, there's a lot of money being put towards senior living communities where people of similar, it could be a golfing community, it could be people who have similar backgrounds. I know that there are a lot of them popping up all over the country because, as we've talked about before on this program with you, we're aging, and we're as a people, as a population, we're aging. There's a lot more people aging, and we need to have more communities tailored. So there are a lot of different options available to people outside of home to home.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's something, even if you weren't going to do a condo or a co-op, there are assisted living facilities, there are senior focused community, homes and communities. And that's important for people who are older. Sense of community is important for everybody, I think. But especially when you are older and, especially like with the pandemic, for example, having these restrictions and social distancing requirements, people need to have some sort of a community. So that's another important factor to take into consideration when you're thinking about renting versus owning. Who are your neighbors, and, will you be happy or comfortable to have, people who might be of the same age or mind as you.
Yeah, or you could have some younger people who listen to heavy rock music or country music or whatever they want. A little loud, maybe it's good
and
for the soul.
And that's not just for the younger folks. I know plenty of older folks who like to listen to a little Van Halen, a little Quiet Riot, things like that.
Well, touche on my part, and you're absolutely right on that. I guess last question here, Allie, and not necessarily related to buying and selling, but I think it's a home, but it's related to fixed incomes, and that is Social Security. I was reading a study or a report that said that the COLA for 2022, I think we had a flat COLA or cost of living adjustment in 2021. You're the expert here. I know you'll remind me. But for 2022, I think we could see a significant increase in the cost of living adjustment for those on Social Security.
Yeah, I don't know the number offhand for what's to be expected for 2022, but I think anything could be better than what we've been seeing lately. That is also something that people need to think carefully about when they are making their plans for the foreseeable future. Social Security, of course, is super important, and a lot of people rely on it for a pretty substantial amount of their retirement income. But if they're expecting to see some sort of major shift every year from COLA, that's not necessarily going to happen. And that's also something that you shouldn't bank on. Social Security also is tied to a different consumer price index, not one that is linked to expenses of the elderly. So it doesn't always reflect the same amount or same type of spending that people who are claiming Social Security actually use. So, just take that stuff into consideration when you are making your budget. And if you're not making your budget, that's fine too. But just, weigh how much of an impact your Social Security check will have for you every month.
Yeah, real good advice. Well, Allie, we could go on for hours and hours. I know I love talking about it. You love talking about it. But people should certainly check out your column each and every day or week or some frequency. Check it out on marketwatch.com. Alessandra Melito, it is always a pleasure chatting with you. You're the retirement guru. Great to talk to you, and look forward to having you back on the program again very soon.
Yeah, thanks so much.
And that wraps up this episode of BRN AM. Have a topic of interest, someone you think we should talk to, then drop us a line. And don't forget, for all the information in retirement markets, technology, personal finance, so much more, all in one place, check out today's edition of our daily newsletter, The Morning Pulse. Don't forget, we're back again tomorrow for BRN Weekly. We'll have a very special guest, and we'll take a look at some of our best segments for the week. Until then, I'm Jeff Snyder. Stay safe, keep on saving, and don't forget, roll with the changes.
Waiting here for you to take Are you being audited and do you owe the IRS $10,000 or more in back taxes? Is the IRS threatening to take more of your money? Don't fight the IRS alone. The Tax Doctor is here to help you negotiate your tax bill and reduce your stress. The IRS can freeze your assets and seize your bank accounts, but you can stop these IRS actions. The Tax Doctor will work with you using our years of experience to represent your case to help you get the best resolution under the IRS guidelines. Help is here to deal with the IRS to reduce your stress. We've handled thousands of cases, so we know what we're doing. If you owe $10,000 or more in back taxes, do not call the IRS alone. Call a Tax Doctor now for a tax emergency analysis.
Call 800-224-6439.